Prince Harry arrived unannounced, expecting discretion, not denial. But just 1 minute before he reached the royal gates, the unthinkable happened. The security team received direct orders. He was not to be let through. The reason? A shocking shift in royal protocol and a private conversation that changed everything. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. It was supposed to be a discreet return. No cameras. No headlines. Just Harry, stepping onto familiar ground in hopes of addressing something only blood could resolve. But what greeted him was not the quiet formality of Windsor's gates. It was a sudden halt. Armed with new instructions, the royal security team did not wave him through, did not contact the inner estate. Instead, they stopped him cold. The moment hung in the air. Prince Harry, denied entry to a place that had once been home. According to those close to the scene, the directive came through less than 60 seconds before his convoy arrived. It was precise, immediate, and without room for negotiation. One security officer reportedly offered a quiet apology, saying simply, "Sir, the orders were final." That sentence would reverberate through every corner of the palace and beyond. Behind the scenes, the pieces were already in place. Catherine and William had allegedly been notified of Harry's intent to visit days before it happened. Whether through whispers from within or a discreet tip-off from someone in Harry's orbit, the information made its way back to the firm. What followed was a meeting, brief, decisive, and quietly damning. There would be no warm reception, no second chances. The gate would remain shut. And so, as Harry sat stunned in the back seat of his vehicle, the walls that once belonged to his childhood, his legacy, and his grief now became the face of rejection. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an oversight. It was deliberate. And the question that echoed louder than the locks on the gate was simple. What had shifted so drastically that the son of a king could be barred from stepping foot on royal soil? But this sudden act of exclusion was rooted in months of rising tension set in motion long before Harry even touched down on British soil. While the public saw Prince Harry's return as a hopeful sign, behind palace doors, it was a ticking time bomb. His unannounced arrival reignited old wounds and revealed that forgiveness was further away than ever. What the cameras didn't capture was the shock ripple that surged through the palace the moment his presence on British soil became known. Harry had made the decision to fly in under the radar, cloaking his return in the vague language of a private family matter. But the truth behind the visit was far more complicated and far more explosive. Protocol was bypassed. Senior staff weren't alerted. There was no formal request, no coordination with royal aides. Instead, Harry's appearance blindsided the very system he once stood at the heart of. For those inside the monarchy, it was viewed less as a reunion and more as an invasion. And the resentment, still raw from the accusations thrown across oceans in interviews and memoirs, roared back to the surface. What made matters worse was the eerie silence from King Charles. Sources suggest the monarch had been kept in the dark about his son's arrival until hours before the confrontation at the gates. Whether that was by design or miscommunication remains unclear, but what it did confirm was this: the king was no longer in control of managing the fallout between his heirs. Anne and Edward, once the more silent players in the family saga, had reportedly begun to shift their tone. In private meetings, they had urged Charles to stop bending backwards for optics and instead protect the institution's authority. And for once, Charles listened, or at least didn't intervene. But the strongest resistance came from William's team. Their position was clear: this wasn't just about a visit. It was about process, dignity, and protecting the monarchy from being used as a backdrop for emotional spectacle. They were adamant, as one insider put it, that Harry's access should be limited until clear terms were laid out and honoured. The future of the crown, they argued, could no longer absorb the unpredictable. Behind the scenes, staff were instructed to treat the visit as unofficial unless otherwise stated. And that decision, subtle as it may have seemed, would shape everything that followed. By the time Harry reached the royal property, The walls had already closed around him. Every missed call, every unreturned email, every unspoken apology had crystallized into something irreversible. The monarchy had not only moved on, it had hardened. And as Harry stood at the threshold of a world he once knew, the question no one dared ask was whether he had come to reconnect or confront. But the real trigger came not from Harry's arrival, but from what he carried with him. A letter, sealed and meant for only one person. In his hand was a letter no one expected. Not from Harry, but from Meghan. Addressed directly to Charles, its contents were said to be so provocative that senior aides debated whether it should even be delivered. The moment Harry arrived, it became clear he wasn't just returning with open arms, he was carrying a message that would detonate everything the palace had tried to keep buried. The envelope was handwritten, carefully sealed, and unmistakably from Meghan. It bypassed protocol. No prior communication, no diplomatic language, no warning. Just ink, emotion, and intent. What lay inside wasn't a plea for peace, it was a reckoning. According to insiders, the letter detailed matters the palace had spent months trying to keep off the record: inheritance issues, questions about titles, and subtle but scathing references to promises allegedly made by Charles before the Queen's death. Meghan's tone, described as composed yet firm, hinted at a line being drawn, a declaration that silence would no longer be tolerated, especially where her children's legacy was concerned. Staff who saw the letter before it reached the king were alarmed. Some even considered withholding it. There was fear, not just about content, but timing. With the monarchy still reeling from public criticism and internal fractures, such a letter could be perceived as manipulation, an attempt to use emotional leverage in a moment of institutional vulnerability. One aide reportedly warned, "This isn't correspondence, it's pressure dressed in parchment." But the letter was handed over anyway, and once Charles read it, the atmosphere inside Windsor shifted instantly. Witnesses described the king's reaction as one of silent devastation. He read it twice, once alone, then again, with his most trusted advisor at his side. There was no shouting, no immediate response. But moments later, Charles reportedly left the room, shut the door, and remained there for hours. The contents had landed with surgical precision, cutting deep into old guilt and unresolved promises. In one portion of the letter, Meghan was said to reference the Queen's final wishes, implying that certain private conversations had gone unfulfilled, particularly regarding Archie's place in the future of the monarchy. Whether those promises were real or imagined was beside the point. The impact had already been made. But the most unexpected fallout came not from the king but from Camilla. Furious that such a personal and volatile letter had reached her husband without her knowledge, she confronted the staff directly. Her fury wasn't just about the message, it was about being bypassed, cut out of the inner circle in a moment that could alter public perception and internal hierarchy alike, and in her silence, a dangerous calculation began to form. What should have been a personal message became a political weapon, turning quiet discontent into open confrontation. With pressure mounting and security waiting for direction, it wasn't Charles who made the final call, it was William. And his decision would mark a permanent shift in royal dynamics. "Not on my watch," he reportedly said. As the palace scrambled to process the full weight of Meghan's letter and Harry's unexpected arrival, the question of how to respond hung heavy in the air. Charles was emotionally gutted, Camilla was livid, and aides were locked in circular discussions about damage control. But in a quiet corner of Kensington, William was already in motion. He had been pulled from a private strategy session the moment Harry's convoy was spotted en route. Within minutes, he convened a closed-door call with Anne, Catherine, and two of his most senior advisors. What followed wasn't a debate, it was a declaration. Meghan's letter, he said bluntly, wasn't communication. It was an ambush, a calculated attempt to force the royal family into reaction under the guise of reconciliation. There was no mistaking his tone. William wasn't just acting as a brother, he was standing as the future monarch. His concern wasn't limited to optics or headlines, it was institutional. He believed that allowing Harry past those gates, under such emotional circumstances, and with the media already circling, would be a surrender to chaos. He referenced the Queen's past emphasis on restraint and formality, reportedly telling the group, "This is not how the crown bends. Not again." It was in that moment that the direction was given security was to hold the gate until further notice, and if questioned, they were to cite orders from the office of the Prince of Wales. Catherine, calm but resolute, offered no objection. In fact, her words to the aides in the room would later become a quiet rallying cry among staff. "We've drawn the line, let it hold." There was no gloating, no vindictiveness, just a clear recognition that this was the moment the family could no longer operate in half measures. Letting Harry in without structure, without accountability, would not heal wounds, it would deepen them. And so, with Charles emotionally withdrawn and Anne signalling agreement from Balmoral, the decision was sealed not by the reigning king, but by his heir. It was a seismic shift. For the first time, William had taken full authority over a royal standoff, marking the beginning of his leadership in a way no one could ignore. But what no one anticipated was what Harry would do next, because while the gates were being held shut, Harry was still outside, and silence was never going to be his exit strategy. But even as the gates held, what happened next made it clear Harry wasn't leaving quietly. Witnesses were stunned. Prince Harry, once third in line to the throne, stood outside royal property in silence. No security pass, no warm welcome, just a locked gate and a decision that had already been made. For nearly 40 minutes, the Duke of Sussex remained parked outside a gate he'd once driven through freely, flanked by security who were now forced to treat him as neither royal nor guest. His convoy waited with engines idling, but no movement came. The command had been clear: stand by, no entry. And as the minutes dragged on, the weight of that rejection settled into something colder. Palace aides had gone silent, messages had been left, calls placed, but no one responded. Not a single door opened. The very institution that once shaped his childhood was now ignoring his presence altogether. Inside the car, uncertainty grew into tension. Meghan, reportedly informed mid-call, was said to be furious. Sources close to her claim she viewed the delay not just as disrespect, but deliberate humiliation. This wasn't a security lapse. It was a message, and she knew it. The story was already beginning to escape. Somehow, perhaps by design, paparazzi had been tipped off. Cameras began to appear at a distance, zoom lenses catching glimpses of Harry through the tinted windows. The press, always circling the perimeter, now had the story handed to them on a silver tray. The narrative wasn't a mystery. It was unfolding in real time. The spare shut out. Security on the ground were trapped between duty and discomfort. Some had protected Harry during his years as a working royal. Others had walked with him behind his mother's casket. Now they stood in his path. One source claimed a guard quietly said, "Sir, we're just following protocol," with an expression that betrayed far more than professionalism. But the protocol had changed. The man who once stood beside the Queen was now being treated as an outsider with no clearance. And the person who could change that with a single word, Charles chose not to act. The King, fully briefed, remained still. No intervention, no override. It was as if silence had been weaponized, as if the royal family had decided that inaction could speak louder than confrontation. But for Harry, the silence was shattering. The palace he once called home now refused to acknowledge his existence. Cameras clicked in the distance. The convoy didn't move, and the man who had once stood on the Buckingham balcony beside his grandmother now sat, waiting, with nowhere to go. But just when it seemed the standoff might end in humiliation, an unexpected visitor emerged from within the walls. It wasn't William, it wasn't Charles, it was Princess Anne who stepped forward. Not to mediate, but to deliver the family's stance face to face. And her words were said to leave Harry shaken. With the air thick in tension and the silence at the gates now stretching into a public spectacle, it was Princess Anne who emerged not with hesitation, but with purpose. No aide, no spokesperson, no royal escort, just Anne, the steadiest hand in the monarchy, making her way to confront what others refused to face. Those who witnessed the encounter said she was composed, unshaken, and resolute. When she approached Harry's car, there were no warm greetings, no pretense of nostalgia. She asked him to step out. And when he did, the two siblings stood opposite one another, not as family, but as representatives of two diverging visions of royalty. Anne didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words were clear and final. She told Harry that the monarchy, as it now stood, will not be moved by emotion under pressure. That the timing of his visit, the nature of the letter, and the media attention trailing behind him were not coincidental, and that everyone inside the palace knew it. She acknowledged his pain, but reminded him that pain does not grant permission to destabilize. She urged him to return, not as a challenger, but as a son who understood the institution's weight, not one who used it as leverage, Harry pleaded. According to a source close to the event, he said, "I'm not here to fight. I just want to speak to my father." But Anne didn't shift. She told him the door remained open only when intentions were aligned with duty, not disruption. She reminded him that family and monarchy were not interchangeable, that trust, once lost, isn't earned through sudden arrivals and emotional gestures. It's earned through time, through action, and through understanding that royalty does not negotiate under pressure. There was no anger in her delivery, only truth. And it struck Harry deeper than any public rejection could have. In that moment, the memory of their mother, of their childhood, of all they once shared, clashed violently with the weight of responsibility Anne had never abandoned. And when it became clear her position would not budge, she turned without ceremony and walked back through the gates. No further discussion, no delay, just silence in her wake. Witnesses say Harry stood there for several minutes, unmoving. Not out of defiance, but in the quiet realization that his presence, however sincere, had been outpaced by a legacy that no longer recognized the way he moved. What Anne delivered was more than a message. It was a declaration that the monarchy was closing ranks. As his sons drift further apart, King Charles finds himself paralyzed, caught between a father's heart and a monarch's duty. But in this moment, silence became his greatest betrayal. The moment Charles was informed of the standoff at the gates, he didn't rise in outrage. He didn't summon his son or override protocol. Instead, he remained still, visibly shaken, yet unmoved. For the people inside Windsor, it was the most painful silence they had ever witnessed. Advisors entered the room, expecting direction, hoping for guidance. What they found instead was a man torn in two. Some around him urged empathy. "He's your son," one reportedly whispered. "Meet him. End this." But others, more senior in their understanding of the crown's delicate balance, cautioned restraint. "What you do now will define your reign," one of them warned. "Bend today, and you fracture everything tomorrow." Camilla made her position clear. She supported William without hesitation. To her, the act of arriving unannounced, of weaponizing emotion and letters in the middle of royal chaos, was an unacceptable breach. She reminded Charles that they were no longer in the era of Elizabeth's silent forgiveness, that the monarchy had been too lenient for too long, and it was time to enforce boundaries, not blur them. Her words echoed throughout the corridors, not as commands but as warnings. And Charles, exhausted and emotionally depleted, listened. Still, those closest to him knew the toll it was taking. In a quiet moment, Charles confided in a lifelong friend, a man who had served as a discreet companion during his loneliest years. To him, Charles reportedly said, "I've already lost one son. I cannot lose the crown." It wasn't a choice he wanted to make. It was a choice he was forced to live with. The memory of Queen Elizabeth loomed large in the back of his mind. Her counsel from years past, "Protect the institution at all costs," rang louder than any present advice. She had prepared him for duty, but not for heartbreak. Unable to watch the scene unfold from within the walls of Windsor, Charles made a quiet decision. Early the next morning, before dawn broke across the countryside, he left. No fanfare. No public itinerary. just a discreet motorcade slipping into the mist. To the outside world, it was a typical royal move. To those inside, it was retreat. A quiet abdication of emotional responsibility. He couldn't face the son he still loved, nor the monarchy he had to protect, and in choosing neither, he let both slip a little further away. But even as the gates remained closed, the fallout was just beginning, and the public was demanding answers. News broke like thunder. Prince Harry denied by royal guards. In a matter of hours, the world split in two, those who blamed him and those who feared the monarchy had gone too far. It started as a slow trickle, one tweet, then a leaked message, and within minutes, the digital floodgates were opened. Major outlets in both the UK and the US plastered their homepages with the same explosive headline, "Harry, locked out of royal grounds." The image was clear. A prince once revered, now waiting behind iron gates. Within hours, social media fractured into furious camps. On one side, staunch supporters of Harry and Meghan erupted in outrage. They called it a public shaming, a cruel display meant to degrade a man who once walked the very halls he was now barred from. Some described it as a symbolic exile, while others labelled it institutional revenge. Meanwhile, pro-monarchy voices fired back. To them, it wasn't a betrayal, it was justice. William and Anne, who had reportedly been involved in the decisions surrounding access, were lauded for defending the Crown's integrity. Pundits called it a defining moment. "Finally, the royals are drawing a line in the sand," one tabloid screamed. But beneath the noise, things were boiling far hotter behind the scenes. Meghan's camp wasted no time. Anonymous sources close to her began feeding curated details to sympathetic journalists. Their version of events painted a very different picture. Harry had not come in defiance, but in desperation to deliver a letter, to speak his truth, to reconnect before it was too late. They claimed he had notified the palace in advance, and that being left outside was intentional. A humiliation campaign, orchestrated not just to reject, but to erase. The royal household remained silent for hours. As speculation mounted and hashtags trended globally, insiders debated how or if the palace should respond. Behind closed doors, there was disagreement. Some believed a firm statement was needed to reassert control. Others feared any comment would fan the flames. In the end, Buckingham Palace offered just 6 words. No comment at this time. Cold, measured, deliberate. But it only inflamed curiosity. Was this silence meant to protect the monarchy or expose Harry to further scrutiny? Meanwhile, commentators, royal watchers, and former palace insiders took to television screens and podcasts, battling for narrative dominance. Some called the denial a warning shot. Others called it a grave mistake. A few dared to ask, has the crown lost its humanity in its pursuit of control? The noise grew louder, the reactions sharper. The incident had transcended royal protocol. It had become a global spectacle, a test of loyalty, of legacy, of power. And as the royal storm raged online, Harry made one final move that left everyone stunned. After days of silence, Harry broke. In a raw, unscripted moment, he finally spoke off camera, outside protocol, and straight from the heart. And what he revealed left both sides reeling. It wasn't a press conference. There were no podiums, no prepared remarks, no royal aides whispering reminders of decorum. Just a small group of journalists standing outside a London hotel and Prince Harry, visibly worn, stepping into view with nothing left to lose. For days, speculation had swirled. Where was he? Why hadn't he responded? And then, in a moment that would dominate headlines worldwide, he answered everything in a few devastating lines. "I came for peace. They gave me a wall." The words hit like a hammer. Not shouted, not rehearsed, just spoken with the weariness of someone who had tried and failed to be heard. He went on, quietly but firmly, revealing that Meghan had advised against the trip. She knew the terrain. She feared the outcome. But Harry had insisted because, as he put it, some things you must do alone. And this had been one of them. He then addressed the heart of the controversy, the letter. It was not, he claimed, an ultimatum, not a demand or veiled threat. It was a final olive branch, handwritten, deeply personal, and sent not to provoke but to heal. But it had never been opened, or if it had, it was met with silence. As cameras began to record, he didn't flinch. He spoke directly, not to the palace, but to the public. He asked that they remember his mother, not the headlines, not the feuds, but the values she stood for. She believed in grace, he said, in forgiveness, in seeing people, not press clippings. If I've failed her legacy, I'll carry that. But I won't stop trying. For a moment, even the most seasoned reporters didn't move. And then came the final words. A line that would echo across networks, timelines, and broadcasts around the globe. I stood outside my family's gates and saw how far away home really is. That wasn't just pain, that was finality. A soft but irrevocable line drawn between the past and whatever comes next. And as he turned away and stepped back into anonymity, something had changed not just in him, but in the story itself. The royal gates may have remained closed, but for the world watching, they had just witnessed a man stripped of titles, protocol, and protection, speaking not as a prince but as a son, rejected. And as the gates remain shut and silence returns, one truth remains: this wasn't just a royal rejection. It was a defining moment of no return. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.